It is 6:40. 61 years ago, he was prevented from working for the government, even though he'd helped crack the Nazis' Enigma code, speeding up the Allied victory in World War II. Alan Turing had been found guilty of gross indecency for having sex with another man at a time when homosexual acts were illegal.
But now the mathematician has been posthumously pardoned by the Queen after a campaign by supporters. One of them is sculptor Glyn Hughes, who designed Turing's memorial in Manchester. Very good morning to you.
Good morning.
What does it mean to you this day?
Well, I'm slightly mixed, actually. I mean, it's very, very gratifying. It's very, very gratifying because when me and lots of other people, as Andrew Hodges was very prominent in publicising Turing, and Richard Humphrey in Manchester, when we set out to try and make him famous, to get him recognised, it was really, really difficult to collect money. None of the big computer corporations.
This is dating back to what, 2001?
It's only just over 10 years ago.
Yeah.
It's only just over 10 years ago.
So, just remind us, for people who aren't that familiar with his story, just as briefly as you can, tell everybody at home.
Right, Alan Turing was a mathematician who, in the 1930s, before the war, wrote a paper called Uncomputable Numbers, in which he suggested it might be possible to make a machine which could carry out processes similar to thought, and he suggested that the machine should be called a computer. And he designed, in broad principle, the way the computers that we use now work. He's generally considered to be the father of the computer.
And in terms of cracking the Enigma code, how important was his work in World War II?
I think Winston Churchill said that nobody was more responsible for winning the war than Turing and his group. One of the things that we don't quite know exactly what he and his lot did during the war, because it's still partly secret. But I've got to say, I'm very gratified that we've come to the point where, rather than being impossible to get anyone to acknowledge Turing, let alone stump up, none of the big computer companies would stump up a penny for a memorial. They perhaps would now. So we've come a long way, and it's very gratifying to hear that Turing's been pardoned. But I can't say I'm not really entirely comfortable with it. I mean, what about all the other thousands of gay men who were prosecuted? I mean, don't you think it rather says that if you're useful to the state, the law doesn't apply to you, we'll let you off?
Well, possibly. I mean, people are suggesting that maybe that because it's so public, this pardon, that it might be something that others can use, if you like, as an example. Of course, it could be, used in other circumstances.
Yeah, the problem is, of course, if there was a general pardon for men who'd been prosecuted for homosexuality, many, many, many of them are still alive, and they could get compensation. Right. But perhaps, I don't know, perhaps we should start another campaign with somebody else, Wilfred Bramble.
But even the Turing pardon in itself it's remarkable, isn't it? Because
it is remarkable.
The pardons themselves are so rare.
They're very rare. And this is a royal pardon. It's not like the pardon, I think, that was previously given under about 5 or 6 years ago to all those soldiers who were shot in the First World War, where they were told they're pardoned, but still guilty. And
something's changed quite dramatically quite recently, because it was only, back in 2009, that officially they were still saying that he was found guilty of a crime at the time, and therefore it had to stand.
I think John Major, the Prime Minister at the time, who, in all fairness, not unsympathetic to the gay rights cause, said, that was the law at the time and it should stand. But I've still got to say, not entirely comfortable about that it's just one person who's been let off, because that wasn't the plan.
Yeah. OK, well, thank you very much for your time this morning.
Glyn Hughes, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Time now is 6:44.